If you look up the term hybrid in the dictionary, there's a pretty good chance you're going to find a photo of a Toyota Prius. This iconic vehicle has been the car that everybody thinks about whenever you mention the word hybrid. And for 2023, there's an all-new 5th generation Prius. And as you can see from the design, Toyota has added some, dare I say, sex appeal to the look of the Prius. And today we're actually out here in Encinitas, California to drive the all-new 5th generation model. And the big question I want answered, has Toyota managed to make the Prius a far more desirable vehicle? Stay tuned to find out. Hey guys, before we get started with the review, I want to give a brief shout out to the sponsor of this video, Upside. Now, if you live in today's modern world, you're going to realize that inflation is getting ridiculous and it's really starting to hit us where it hurts. And it really hurts. Which is why I started using an app called Upside. Now, Upside can be used by anybody who buys groceries, goes out to eat, or gets gasoline. And with every purchase that I make using Upside, I am earning cash back. Now, for me personally, I actually use Upside a lot when I travel. As you guys know, I travel a lot for this job. And every time I'm in a new location, I'll check the Upside app and I'll see what kind of deals are around me, such as restaurants, such as gasoline. And for some of these deals from restaurants, I'll see a cashback amount of up to 15%, which is actually about 3 times more than what you're gonna see from most of those major credit card companies. Once you've picked the restaurant you want to go to, simply check in using the Upside app, pay with your usual credit or debit card, and then start earning that cash back right away. And finally, once you're ready to cash out, you can do so anytime through your bank account, PayPal, e-gift card through Amazon, or other companies. So what are you waiting for, guys? To get started, go ahead and download the free Upside app through your phone's App Store or Google Play. Use my code word Redline and earn $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. And now, let's get back to the video. So before we start talking about the far sexier exterior styling, let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain for the new Prius, because this model here is just the standard Prius hybrid. We're going to do a separate video on the plug-in hybrid Prius Prime. Toyota says that'll be available sometime next spring. But since we have the hood open of this model here, let's go ahead and talk about what's underneath the hood. Now, all Priuses continue to be a hybrid. For those of you who are thinking Toyota would go all electric, clearly that is not the case. And this model here that we're showing you is the Limited with all-wheel drive, which means you have a new powertrain. This is now a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, double overhead cam, so it's a bigger engine versus the prior generation. And with the all-wheel drive model, it has 2 electric motors powering it. So you have one at the front and a separate e-axle at the back, which is about 6 times actually more powerful versus the previous generation all-wheel drive system. The gas engine on its own delivers 150 horsepower. The front electric motor will also deliver up to 111 horsepower, and Toyota says the electric motor will deliver up to 152 pound-feet of torque. They don't quote a torque figure combined with the gas and electric powertrain, but this model here offers up to 196 horsepower. That's 2 more versus the front-wheel drive version and about 75 more horsepower versus the prior generation. So these are some big gains in terms of power, and the Prius definitely needed it because Toyota says this new model should get to 60 in as little as 7 seconds. So that's actually almost 3 seconds faster than the old model. This model continues to use an eCVT, which kind of functions almost like a direct drive transmission when the vehicle drives on EV alone. The battery pack is now a lithium-ion battery pack, which Toyota says is about 14% more powerful and also lighter than the prior generation, and it measures around 0.91 kilowatt hours. So it's a very small battery pack because remember, this is not the plug-in hybrid. The plug-in hybrid model should have around a 13 kilowatt hour battery pack, which we'll talk about later, that vehicle later on when we drive that car sometime next spring. Now, in terms of fuel economy, Toyota originally mentioned you can get up to 57 mpg combined. That's for the base LE. This model here, however, with all-wheel drive, drops the fuel economy to 49 in the city and 50 on the highway. That's still around 49 mpg combined. Basically, all-wheel drive will drop the gas mileage by about 3 mpg, and then the 19-inch wheels will drop it by about 5 mpg. The new Prius is about 100 pounds heavier than the previous generation. As this one sits, it weighs in at around 3,300 pounds, which is still pretty light, especially by modern car standards. But let's go ahead and close up the hood of this model, which, as you can see, it's held up by a prop rod. This particular one here is in a new color for the Prius. It's called Reservoir Blue. And I have to say, it is a very attractive looking car. It actually gets a surprising amount of looks out here in Southern California, because remember, this is kind of Prius land, but I have to admit, this new design language here, it's now built on the TNGA-C architecture in its second generation. So Toyota says they've made it about an inch wider and about 2 inches lower overall. And you can really see that in the design. You can see the look of this car is just a lot more sleek. It's a lot more modern. It's a lot more sophisticated. The full LED headlights you can see are going to be standard. They're kind of like a bi-LED where you have an LED daytime running light that's kind of like a C shape. You have more LED accents here on this portion, and on the lower portion you have an LED turn signal, and then you have LED low and high beams. No fog lights on the Prius, which a lot of new cars are kind of getting rid of that. And I also like here on the front bumper you have kind of like this silver piece here, and then there are some active grille shutters in here because remember, this is still a hybrid vehicle. It's all about aerodynamics. Toyota says with the smaller 17-inch wheels you have roughly a 0.27 coefficient of drag, which is technically a little bit worse versus the prior generation. But you can really see kind of how swept back the windshield is on this car to again give it a much more attractive looking shape. Now looking around the side profile, you can see that lower roof really comes into play here, which it will reduce the headroom. We'll talk about that later when we go into the interior. But in terms of the overall length, Toyota said they've lengthened the wheelbase by about 2 inches. So it's now 108.3 inches long, and it's around 181.1 inches long. So this is again about an inch longer than the prior generation, which it didn't really need to get bigger. This is still technically shorter than the Corolla hybrid by about 2 inches. A Camry hybrid is around a foot longer. So kind of keep that in mind. If you like a smaller vehicle, the Prius is going to be the one you're going to want to go for. Now in terms of the wheels, the old generation Prius, you could still get it with 15-inch wheels. The new model in the base LE will have a 17-inch alloy with an aerodynamic cover. I don't have any of those to show you. However, this limited model here and the XLE comes with a 19-inch wheel. That's right, your Prius can now be equipped with a 19-inch wheel. And I have to say, the wheel design is attractive, but what really is confusing to me is the tire size. It's a 195/50 R19. I've never seen that kind of size aspect ratio on a 19-inch wheel. I suspect Toyota kept the tires pretty narrow for aerodynamics and for efficiency. I also suspect a lot of owners will probably put a fatter tire on this car. You have 4-wheel disc brakes around. The all-wheel drive model has a bigger front rotor at 12 inches versus 11 inches on the front drive model, and I suspect Toyota did that again for the added weight. There is a very subtle all-wheel drive badge here that again lets people know that this is all-wheel drive. And then you can see there's some gloss black painted fender trim along the side of the vehicle. There's a gloss black mirror here. And then you also can see here there's a panoramic glass roof, which this roof doesn't open, but it's standard on the limited grade, $1,000 option if you guys want this on the XLE trim. It really, again, gives the Prius a much more attractive design overall. And then you can see here the rear door handles have been moved into the D pillar here, and it's actually a digital latch system, kind of like what we find on some new Lexus products, which again makes the car look a lot more coupe-like. And all that swoopy design elements kind of carry over into the back, where Toyota actually did get rid of the split window that the prior generation had. It does make for a better looking rear end for me, and it also should improve the rear visibility. The taillights you can see kind of remind me a little bit of the new Toyota Crown, their flagship electrified sedan. You can see you've got LED taillights, full LED turn signals as well. There's a limited badge here, and then over here you can see this is the first Toyota model to get Toyota's new Beyond Zero badging, because that's all, again, all part of their very ambitious strategy to deliver 40% of their cars to be electrified by 2025. HEV stands for hybrid electric vehicle. The Prime will have a PHEV badge because it's a plug-in hybrid, and then you can see here on the rear bumper, obviously no visible exhaust tips. This is designed to be, again, kind of that electric future that Toyota is promising. Now, the limited grade is the only trim to get a power-operated rear liftgate. That's actually a new feature. The previous generation never offered that. And you can see here the space is pretty good. There's also some underfloor storage over here. If you want a temporary spare tire, it's only on the LE trim. If you guys go for the XLE or Limited, you'll just have a fix-a-flat kit. The seats still fold down in a 60/40 manner, and Toyota says you get around 21 cubic feet of storage space. That's decent. However, the previous generation, I believe, offered around 25 cubic feet of space, so that was a little bit less. And if you fold down those seats, Toyota didn't actually have a final number for us for total cargo, but the old one had around 47 cubic feet. I'd suspect this is probably at least 40 cubic feet. So the exterior of the Prius definitely looks all new, and that is carried over when you step inside the interior, because this Prius finally has an interior that doesn't feel weird to me. It feels thoroughly modern, and it also feels very premium, and that's saying something because this model that we're sitting in is a very early pre-production car. Now, the Reservoir Blue is complemented by this beautiful light gray interior. This is a Softex leather, so it's a faux leather material. You get an 8-way power driver's seat on this driver's side with 2-person memory. This is a 6-way manual on the passenger side, and you can see the seats are heated and ventilated, which is definitely a nice touch. I don't believe the previous generation offered that, which again is a nice upgrade for the new Prius. Now getting in and shutting the door, the door has a relatively solid sounding thunk. Remember, this is built on the TNGA-C architecture, now in its second generation. And then you can see, here's the key fob for the vehicle. This is the current Toyota fob. You can see it says Prius on the back. You also can use the usual buttons, lock, unlock, open up the rear tailgate, and then the panic feature. Toyota does offer a digital key function where you can use your phone as a key. That is optional on the XLE, standard on the limited grade, which if you guys own this vehicle, you can also use the Toyota Connected Services app. The start-stop button is right here where you'd expect it to be. It's not blocked by the steering wheel, which is nice. And then when I turn the vehicle on, you can see this limited grade definitely will surprise a lot of you with the tech features. Now you can see there is a 12.3-inch fully digital touchscreen that runs Toyota's latest Toyota Audio Multimedia interface. I've shown you guys this system before. It has features like wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. It has over-the-air updates. And then now we have a new 7-inch cluster here that's kind of mounted high on the dash. This almost functions as a heads-up display. Remember, the previous generation Prius didn't even have a display behind the steering wheel, which is definitely nice how they've given you that. This steering wheel, you can see, comes right off of the BZ4X. It's not my favorite in terms of the design, but you can see it's a manual tilt and telescoping wheel. It offers a good amount of adjustability and range. You have all these usual buttons here for the Toyota Safety Sense 3.0. That's standard on every vehicle, so you have new features like front pedestrian and motorcyclist detection. It has front cross-traffic alert and automatic emergency braking and adaptive cruise control, all that stuff, and lane change assist. Now in terms of the materials, you can see the door panel has a soft touch injection molded plastic. There is some kind of cheaper feeling plastic here. There's an aluminum accented door handle, which looks pretty nice. 2-person memory seats, like I mentioned. The window controls are one touch for all 4, which is definitely nice. The controls also feel pretty high quality and tactile. The horn itself sounds horrible. It's super puny, so I imagine some owners may end up replacing that. There are a couple of additional buttons over here for your heated steering wheel, which is standard on the XLE grade. You also have a heated windshield. You also have automatic high beams. The controls here for the turn signals and the wiper controls feel pretty good. And then in terms of the dashboard, you can see this area here kind of has a cheaper feel because this is all hard touch plastic. There's a lot of actual plastic here that is accenting this kind of virtual display over here. I don't particularly like this area, but over here you can see there's a soft touch injection molded plastic. There's this silver textured piece here that tries to look like a combination of carbon fiber and maybe some aluminum trim. Hard touch over here, and then you can see over here, here are your buttons for your heated and ventilated seats. It's 3 different levels. And then the buttons themselves feel pretty nice. One thing that's interesting, this car has automatic climate control, but it actually is just a single zone. When I was looking at the press kit, Toyota said it had a dual zone climate control system, so I'm not entirely sure what happened there. There's probably a typo. But to clarify, for those of you who are asking, this has a single zone automatic climate control, at least for this model that I'm in. You have a little bit more storage over here where you can actually open this up. You can see there's some hidden storage over there. Which is something that I didn't realize. It actually says hidden compartment under there. There's a couple of cool little Easter eggs that you're gonna find throughout this vehicle. Cup holders, and then this shifter here controls the eCVT. It's pretty much the same shifter in other Toyota products. Kick it over there into the center to go to neutral, push it forward to go to reverse. You can see there's your full 360 camera. This model here has it because it has an limited advanced tech package that includes that. You can see it's got a full 360 view. It's got trajectory, it's got parking sensors. It also has a front camera washer, which is nice. This is the only trim to get the full 360 camera. All of them will just have a backup camera standard. Your drive mode selectors over here, you can see the Prius offers 4. There's a total of custom, sport, normal, and eco. Custom allows you to basically fine-tune the different settings to tailor to your exact driving. There's also a really cool wireless phone charging pad here, which you can see fits my iPhone 14 Pro Max very nicely. And then you'll have a little more buttons over here for the electronic parking brake. There's an EV mode here that is kind of useless considering how small the battery is. You're not gonna be able to go very far on electric only. Literally, as soon as you push the pedal, the gas engine will come on. There's a nice padded center console over here. If you open this up, you have 2 USB-C charging ports. Toyota says there's a total of 6 USB-C charging ports in total for this vehicle. It's a pretty good size as well. And then you can see my tester for an extra $200 has the digital camera review mirror, which I think for those of you who don't like the way it looks from the back, because now that we don't have that split rear window, you can see the rear view is a little bit compromised from the slope, but which again, this kind of fixes that when you go to the digital camera rear view. There's some LED map lighting in here, which definitely looks good. The panoramic glass roof, you can see, has 2 sunshades for the front and the rear. I don't love how there's this kind of gray bar that kind of intersects and breaks the two of them together. I would have preferred just a separate glass piece, and you are noticing the significantly reduced headroom. There's actually about 1.5 inches less headroom versus the prior generation. I'm 5'7". You can see my head is getting pretty close to the roof here. I had a colleague in here, Tommy from TFL, who's 6'1", and his head is practically almost at the roof, so keep that in mind for those of you who are a lot taller. And then you can see here, in terms of the glove compartment, it's actually a pretty big size. It's damped, not lined with felt. It's a bin style, and then you can also see here there's some beautiful accented LED lighting in this vehicle, which comes standard, I believe, on the XLE and up trims. It's nothing super fancy, but it does add a nice bit of class to the interior. And then this particular one here also has an 8-speaker JBL premium sound system. The Limited is the only trim to get the premium sound system, and technically has 2 more speakers versus the other trims, which make do with a 6-speaker audio system. Now, moving into the back seat of the new Prius, because the wheelbase was lengthened by about 2 inches, we do have a little bit more legroom back here. But around 34.8 inches isn't a lot. Again, it's about 1 inch more versus the prior generation, but for somebody like my height, you can see there's a pretty decent amount of space. The Limited with the tech package includes, you can see, 1 level heated rear seats. You have 2 more USB-C charging ports, but as you can see here, no rear seat air vents, so that's a little bit disappointing to not see that, especially on this top grade Limited. In terms of the materials, you can see hard touch plastic versus the soft touch that you found on the front seats, but there is some padded areas over here where I would rest my elbow, which is kind of the same as the front. In terms of storage, you have 1 storage pocket here on the passenger side, and then it looks like there could be a little bit more if Toyota would just add that. There is a little bit on the door pockets, and then down here you can see the floor is not completely flat, which surprises me considering the rear axle is powered by a separate electric motor. It doesn't actually have a physical drive shaft connection, but again, it's still relatively decent. You have an armrest here that folds down and gives you 2 cup holders. And then for somebody like me at 5'7", the headroom is pretty tight. I'm fine back here, but again, my videographer, Rob, is about 6'1", and his head practically has to go like this. So kind of keep that in mind if you guys have the older generation. That had more headroom, and I guess if you want more headroom, Toyota will happily sell you a RAV4 hybrid, which will have significantly more space in the back seat. So the day has finally come. We are behind the wheel of the all-new 2023 Toyota Prius. I know a lot of you have been super excited to see. This is a very, very popular hybrid vehicle, one of the very first to come out over 25 years ago. So this is a pretty big deal, and we are kicking things off in the all-wheel drive version of the Prius, which means we have 196 horsepower, which means we have an additional permanent magnet-style rear electric motor. It's been significantly strengthened in terms of power output compared to the old model. 6 times more powerful rear electric motor. Really, in reality, it delivers around 40 horsepower and around 62 pound-feet of torque. But still, Toyota claims 0 to 60 in 7 seconds for this model, and I suspect it's going to be a little bit quicker. It's about 0.2 seconds quicker with 2 additional horsepower compared to the front drive model. We'll see if we can hop into a front drive model later and compare the differences. But I have to say, first setting off in the new Prius, you get a sense that you're driving a car that feels a lot more premium. It has less of a cheap economy car feel and more of a sleeker, more premium upscale sedan. One thing I'm noticing right away, just like all the other typical Toyota hybrids, when you drive the vehicle normally, you don't really notice too much in terms of annoyances, but you will hear the engine. The gas engine makes its presence extremely known. I'll be curious to drive the Prius Prime at a later date and see if that fixes that issue, which it should, because you'll be able to go almost 40 miles on electric-only range from the stronger electric motor. But still, I'm noticing right off the bat just how much more quick this car feels because of the stronger electric motor, the lithium-ion battery pack. It just feels like it tries to behave more like an electric car, especially at lower speeds. You can get up to higher speeds in EV mode versus the previous generation, which really, the nickel metal hydride battery of it just made for a drive that was just a buzzy and unpleasant experience. The seats also, I noticed, are far more comfortable this year. This is the Softex interior on the XLE. It's a black interior. They just hug me, they hold me in place really nicely, and they just feel a lot more comfortable. Visibility in here, however, I will say isn't quite as good. The windshield is super raked, and you get a sense that you're driving a car that's just much lower. So for those of you who don't like that, you may prefer the older model. But let's go ahead and test out what we can get 0 to 60 wise in this car. We'll brake torque it. No wheel spin because of the all-wheel drive. Wow, this thing actually feels pretty quick. 6.7 seconds. 6.7 seconds in a Prius. Let that sink in for a minute. The old model probably took closer to 10 seconds. This new version is easily 3 seconds quicker versus the last time that I got for a Prius all-wheel drive. It's just insane to me how fast this car is. Put my foot down again. You feel the electric motor torque basically push you back in the seat, which offers 152 pound-feet on its own. And then after the higher speeds, the engine will take over and it just has a surge of power. I mean, yes, the noise is really unpleasant. I don't love the noise of the 2-liter 4-cylinder that runs on the Atkinson cycle, but the CVT is super smooth, responsive, behaves almost like a direct drive transmission until the engine comes to life. It's just annoyingly loud at that point. But it no longer feels lethargic. It no longer feels slow. It is a huge improvement, and Toyota should be really, really proud of themselves. I'm shocked at how quick this is. It gets me super excited to drive the Prius Prime sometime early next year. But other than that, the ride quality from the 4-wheel independent suspension is good. This is now riding on the TNGA-C architecture, which is stiffer, it's stronger. It's definitely a little bit more sporty feeling as well. The steering in this car definitely feels like it's a little bit quicker ratio. It doesn't really transmit much in terms of feedback, but what I'm really liking about the new Prius is that new instrument panel, the 7-inch display behind the steering wheel. It almost kind of functions like a heads-up display. You have this massive 12.3-inch display, and then look at the ambient lighting in this car. Guys, you can see there's a beautiful ambient light strip along the dashboard of the vehicle, and this is the XLE trim. Now, again, it's not going to be as intricate as some of the really luxurious brands, but for a Prius, you guys have to admit the interior quality is definitely much improved versus the prior generations. And this model here that I'm driving is a really early pre-production model. But well, let's go ahead and hop into the front drive version and see what we can get in terms of the 0 to 60 time. But I have to say, guys, 6.8 is really impressive considering the efficiency of this car. All right, so after just hopping out of the all-wheel drive Prius, we are now sitting inside a limited front-wheel drive model, which means we have 194 horsepower. There's 2 less horsepower, but this car is lacking the rear separate e-axle that adds like 40 horsepower, not to the total output, but still, this model Toyota claims should do 0 to 60 in around 7.2 seconds, and you get about 3 mpg better. So instead of 49 mpg, we get 52 mpg. So for those of you who don't need all-wheel drive, you don't necessarily have to have it as well. And Toyota claims that it's still practically as quick. So that's a kind of a reason why you might want to get the front wheel drive model and save yourself $1,400 as well. So let's go ahead and see what we can get 0 to 60 wise in this car. We'll go ahead and we'll brake torque it. Surprisingly quick and no torque steer and whatnot, so that's pretty good. 7.18 seconds there. 7.18 is surprisingly fast. It's only, again, about, I got 6.7 is my best run that I got on the all-wheel drive model, so 7.18 is right on target with Toyota's claims. So again, if you want all-wheel drive, it'll get you another almost half a second faster in my testing. Toyota's testing is only 0.2, but again, it is a surprisingly fast vehicle, and it should be enough power for most people. And compared to like whether you can feel the weight difference, this is about a 100-pound difference. You're not gonna really notice that. I'm gonna switch the car into just its normal drive mode. We'll get it out of sport because most people in a Prius, they're not gonna be going that fast. But this is where the car, you really appreciate the fact that it is a full hybrid system. Now the battery pack is very small, so you're not gonna be doing electric only driving much, but when you come up to a stoplight, you're in rush hour, you're stop and go traffic, this is where you can kind of appreciate the fact that the Prius is a full hybrid because it has the ability to accelerate in fully electric alone, and it's just very quiet, it's very smooth. The eCVT in this model kind of behaves like a direct drive transmission when it's in EV mode, but again, as soon as you give it a little bit more power, actually I'll put it into EV mode now. There's an EV button here. I want to show you guys, as soon as you push the accelerator, there we go, it says EV mode deactivated, accelerator pressed too far. But again, the amount of torque that you get, it's instantaneous. The car just surges forward with that nice feeling of effortlessness. The engine does have a little bit of that kind of noisiness that you associate with Toyota's hybrid system with the eCVT, but this 2-liter is such a joy. It's much better versus the old 1.8. The car is just night and day difference in terms of acceleration. In terms of the ride quality, this model here still has the 19-inch wheels. It's a little bit lighter. We've got a fully independent suspension, although the rear suspension kind of behaves more like a semi-independent, not a torsion beam. It's more sophisticated than that, but the Prius, I believe, has a good ride quality. These skinny little tires, though, I imagine for those of you who want to attack like a corner more aggressively or back road, you're probably going to want to upgrade the tire size to at least a 215 or a 225. I'll be curious to see if they actually fit something like that, and they have enough clearance on the wheels. But the one thing I do want to mention, the all-wheel drive version, now these are very early pre-production cars. That one was showing only about 38 miles to the gallon on the trip computer. This one here, this is being driven by very lead-footed journalists all day, is showing 43 mpg. So 43 mpg is a nice improvement. But again, this car is rated to get 52. I'll have to wait until I get one back home for a full week to do an actual fuel economy test. On a full tank, these cars were showing around 470 miles. They should, in theory, do around 550 at least when you have the fuel economy up to what the EPA or what Toyota says they'll do. So again, excellent range, excellent drivability. The car has a quiet enough interior, good ride quality. The only thing you're gonna have to deal with is the fact that you have less headroom in here, which for me, it's fine. But I know a lot of Priuses are used as taxis, as Ubers, and that may not be the case anymore with this new generation. However, Toyota will again happily sell you a RAV4 hybrid for a little bit more if you require that additional space and you don't want to give up the efficiency, but you also want something that sits up a little bit higher. So if you guys have watched my previous videos on the prior generation Toyota Prius, you'll know that I was never a fan of the 4th generation model. I thought the design was just too frumpy. It never looked good to me, even when Toyota gave it a massive refresh. So after spending some time with the all-new 5th generation model, I am quite pleased with what Toyota has done here. They finally have given the Prius some relevance, because for such a long time, I was telling people to buy a Corolla hybrid, a Camry hybrid, or a RAV4 hybrid, and now with this all-new model, with the significant power increase, the improvement in the fuel efficiency, the way better looking exterior, and the improved interior, there's a lot to like with the all-new Toyota Prius. Even the quickness, 0 to 60 in 6.8 seconds, is just unheard of for a Prius. So again, you can no longer call this car slow, and you can no longer call this car boring, which is something that has always been the case for the previous generation, and it gets me excited to drive the Prius Prime sometime next year. I actually hope that Toyota will eventually do a performance version, maybe a GR Prius. Of course, that's something that we can only hope for, but hey, the Prius finally has a design that could warrant something like that, and it's really going to depend, again, on the demand for the vehicle. Now, speaking of which, if you are looking to get your hands on this car, and I suspect there's a lot of you out there, you can actually find these at your local Toyota dealership as early as January, so basically just a month. And Toyota has finally already announced pricing. This is all happening very quickly. The base price of the Prius LE with front-wheel drive starts at around $27,500. That's about a $2,500 increase versus the prior generation. I know it's a hefty increase, but there's a lot of technology and style that Toyota has added here, so it's kind of warranting that, especially the increase in power. If you guys want all-wheel drive, it's another $1,400 on top of that price. And if you want to go to the XLE trim, the mid-trim, it's around $3,400 more. Kind of a worthy upcharge, but again, you're going to be losing about 5 mpg by going for the XLE. The Limited is another $4,000 on top of that. It includes a lot of tech in this car. And then this particular one here in Reservoir Blue with the advanced technology package, the digital camera review mirror. This one here with the $1,000 destination charge comes to $38,835. I know, nearly 40 grand for a Prius sounds like a lot, but again, Toyota has priced this vehicle very competitively, because compared to the Corolla hybrid, the Prius is around $5,000 more. I'd argue that it's worth that premium. This is actually still $500 less expensive than a Camry hybrid, but at the high end, this is still about $4,000 more than a Camry. And then, of course, if you want an even more practical vehicle, there's the RAV4 hybrid, which starts at around $31,000, can go well over 40. So again, Toyota has kind of priced the Prius very well, and I'm going to be very curious to see how many people actually end up purchasing this model, because Toyota managed to do around 60,000 sales last year. At their peak, they did almost 250,000, and we should see those numbers obviously significantly improve when this new model goes on sale in January. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2023 Toyota Prius. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.